Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Transformation Tuesday. So if you're on, let me know if you can hear me. Give me a thumbs up or a heart or something so I can see you are there, so I can see your comments. I can't always see the comments that are happening in the box because of Facebook and technology, and we don't go together at times. So when you come on, if you're there, I'll ask you to give me some thumbs up and things. That would be terrific. I've got a flickering light over my head, so I hope that's not really annoying to you. So I'll get started on our Transformation Tuesday. The bus going past, it's all going on here. So one of the things I wanted to do was share about clients that I have that have had transformative stories. I think it's really important that we can see that people can get better from gut problems, and that it's not all doom and gloom. And yes, there's going to be some work, but the magic is in the work. I've got a post in my Love Your Guts group. If you want to come over and join up to that, that's really good. We've got a post in there today about the magic is in the work. It's not always that magic pill that's going to get you there. It's doing those little tiny steps every day. And so this client that I had, I'm going to change her name. She was a client from overseas that I saw only on Zoom. And we've had probably four. Hello, Robin. People now. So give me a thumbs up and stuff if you can hear me, if I sound normal, if you can hear me, or a heart, just because my phone's been playing up and the technology's not always fantastic for me. So just so I know you are there. And I can't see anything yet. So I know Robin's watching, but if you could give me a thumbs up, Robin, so I know that you can hear me, that would be terrific. Yep, perfect, great. So the client that I'm going to talk about today is Amelia, and she's an overseas client, so I've only seen her off Zoom. Thank you kindly. And so she was told by her doctor she needed antibiotics for her skin, which she went on to do. And so on the very first day that they gave her 2 different antibiotics, she had this massive fatigue, like a 10 out of 10, couldn't get out of bed, couldn't do anything, completely exhausted, which was pretty tough to go from, just going to have, some antibiotics to help fix the skin, and now she's gone to this complete fatigue. So once her blood tests were done, she was found that she was really low in iron. She was diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease as well, which is an autoimmune disease of our thyroid. And she was medicated for this at that point in time. So her hair was falling out. She had massive constipation issues, and I mean massive. And so what I mean by massive is when I first spoke with her, she hadn't been to the toilet for a poo for 3 weeks. So that's pretty massive. So you can imagine the level of pain and discomfort that she was actually experiencing. To go along with this, she had a whole raft of other symptoms as well. She was cold, she was exhausted, she would sleep for 18 hours a day, but she couldn't sleep properly. She would wake up for short periods of time, like every 20 or 30 minutes she'd be awake for a shorter period of time, and then she'd go back to sleep. She had acid reflux, cramps in her stomach, and she had cramps in her legs and stuff as well. So she had pain all over the place. So in the stomach, she had pain all the time, but sometimes it was really a diffuse, dull ache, and other times it would be sharp stabbing pain. So pretty bad. She was anemic, which means she was really low in iron, and her periods had become erratic. So she was getting weaker and weaker, and every time she went to the doctor, according to her blood work, she was good. And they couldn't find any reasons that she was experiencing the level of fatigue and pain she was. So you can see that was pretty problematic for her. Once we talked about her food diary, we noticed that foods like bread and pasta and any sort of dairy would give her more bloating. And she developed oral thrush from the actual antibiotics as well. So, there's a lot going on here. So once we did her food diary, I noticed a couple of things straight away. And that's why I think it's really important that people do food diaries. I noticed that she was only eating 1 meal a day, and she had no real protein in that. But she included lots of vegetables and bone broth, which was really good. And the reason she did this was because she felt bad when she ate. And she was full. Her belly was so full. If you haven't been to the bathroom in 3 weeks, you're pretty full. So she had a really big stomach ache, which, from my perspective, having chronic constipation for 45 years, I actually know how she would feel. It's such a tough place to be. So with clients in clinic, I always follow a really simple path. You know, what's happening in the mouth, and then work my way down. You know, you need to have a bit of a blueprint on where to start. People just jump in and go, oh, it's your gut, fix your gut. But what about if you're not chewing food enough, or you don't have the necessary hydrochloric acid when the food gets to your stomach? They're the things that you should be thinking about, not just going straight to your gut. We need every bit to work in order, not just one isolated place. And our gut really is important, but we are a whole being, and all of that needs to be taken into consideration. So a couple of things we did. We started to get her to chew more, because when we chew more, it increases our hydrochloric acid production. And it improves how we absorb the nutrients. It also helps us break down the food into smaller pieces, which is the whole point of us chewing, because that takes some of the onus off our stomach to have to break them down to such smaller pieces, because we have digestive enzymes in our mouth that can start to do that. And the other thing with the hydrochloric acid, we need hydrochloric acid to absorb the iron, and we need iron to make hydrochloric acid. So you can see with Amelia, it was really chicken and egg scenario. Was it that she didn't have enough iron to make hydrochloric acid, or that she didn't have hydrochloric acid to make iron? So, you know, we definitely focused on the things that we could improve, and chewing is one of the things that can help us. Thank you. So we definitely focused on this. And you can see that there's a lot of things happening for Amelia. And sometimes when you see that to start with, you think, holy hell, what are we going to do here? And so it's just about going back to the basic stuff first and working your way through. So for me, her biggest problem for me, there were two really big issues for me. One was the fatigue. Being a 10 out of 10 means she couldn't get out of bed most days. So that was a really big issue for me. And the constipation was a big issue. When your bowel doesn't work, you are recirculating the waste that your body's trying to get out. And that waste is toxic waste. So it needs to go, you know, and this also contributes to her fatigue. So it's really important. They're the things we focused on first. So for her, only eating food once per day was likely to be contributing to her constipation. Not enough fiber or not enough volume of food to get the food moving around her body. The other thing is, because she wasn't eating enough protein, that is likely to contribute to the fatigue as well. So, and her thyroid was impacting here as well. So what we did is we replaced a lot of nutrients that weren't being absorbed: her iron, magnesium, B vitamins, zinc, hydrochloric acid, and digestive enzymes, to help her body have a bit of a rest, because it was clear that she wasn't doing it herself. So these nutrients are all really critical to our digestive health. So that's really important. So again, our first point of call was to make sure that she was breaking down her foods really well. And so we did this with the good chewing practices, the hydrochloric acid and digestive enzymes to help her build her own digestive fire. So, and increasing her protein level. So with the enzymes, they helped her break down that protein that she was eating, and help the food move through her stomach, so it wasn't just sitting there. So then we needed to get her bowel moving. The longer the food is stagnating, the more likely she's opening herself up to having a parasite, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and imbalanced gut bacteria. So we started her on really high doses of magnesium and B vitamins to get her moving and for her energy production. So we also use practitioner-only probiotics specifically for constipation, and we went a higher dose with these. So then we went, and tackled the food issues. So we needed to bring in protein with every meal. She had to eat 3 meals per day, and she had to be woken up to eat them. And go for a short walk. There was no, she's too tired to eat. We had to get her up and get her moving. And so we had to see that when she had 3 meals, was that going to improve her bowel movement? And she was to eat as many as fruit and veg as she could. And as everybody who's ever listened to me, I like to say 30 or 40 a week, but I asked for 30 at least. And this was a bit tricky because as soon as she ate, Amelia's pain level increased. So we had to manage this with charcoal at the beginning, because the more pain she has, the more less likely she's going to want to eat. So we have to find a way to reduce the symptoms that she had around it. So after a couple of days, she found out that she didn't actually need to have the charcoal anymore because her gut got a lot better once she started to eat regular and the hydrochloric acid kicked in. So I had a follow-up with Amelia about 2 weeks after the new eating and supplementation regime, and we incorporated a couple of exercises for her to do as well, because with fatigue, if you're fatigued and not moving, you're not likely to get any more energy. If you can do small amounts of exercise when you're fatigued, it will help really go a long way to helping you out. So we incorporated the exercise as well, and she told me that she had started having daily bowel movements, which was terrific. Her hair had stopped falling out. She was still cold, which is one of the symptoms of Hashimoto's, but not as much. Her reflux had completely resolved, and now her fatigue, rather than a 10 out of 10, was a 3 out of 10. So that's in 2 weeks. So she was able to eat more foods without that constant pain and that stabbing pain that had completely disappeared. So she was still nowhere where she would want to be, but she'd moved a long way forward. She wasn't waking continuously at night. She was getting better sleep. Her gut symptoms were about 80% resolved after 2 weeks, which was pretty amazing considering how bad she was when I first spoke to her. It was pretty remarkable, actually. And after 4 weeks, her stomach issues had all but resolved. Her iron levels were much better, and she'd been taken off her thyroid medication by her doctor. So when her antibody levels were tested, they were actually back to normal, which is terrific. And it doesn't usually happen as easily as that. The other thing that she had was the period issues that she'd had also completely resolved. Her sleep was still not great, but I think from where we were, where she was sleeping 18 hours a day and waking up, to now she was going to bed probably not at the right time, but she was getting much more sleep, but it wasn't as good as we'd like to see it. So we still needed to see if we could get that better. And this is my theme of the day, and I just said over in the other group, I've posted a thing about the magic is in the work that we do when it comes to gut health. It's not a quick pill that you go, oh yeah, that's going to fix me. So I wanted to show you this with Amelia too, that if you commit to the work, you'll make the changes you need to be able to heal yourself. And so it's sometimes for some people it's really quickly, and for others it's not so fast. So what was fantastic about Amelia, their commitment to her getting better was absolutely amazing. They did every single thing that was suggested, and they really took on board all the food, all the lifestyle suggestions, and all the exercise suggestions that we gave, that I gave them. So that really sort of made an effort. For them, it was a big effort because there was a lot of things I asked them to do, because she was at that point where they didn't actually think she would get better. They were worried about her. She was wasting away weight-wise in front of their eyes. So the thing was, when you start out on your gut journey, take small steps every day. Seek some help, and look, it can be as simple as starting with a food diary. That's a really great place to start. And if you're watching this and you didn't start at the start, go back, and I talked about how start with the simple things. Chew better, chew for longer, chew for 20 to 30 times every mouthful. Make sure your digestive fire is working, your hydrochloric acid and your digestive enzymes. Make sure they're working well. And if they're not, some of the things I would supplement. So that's probably it for me and Amelia. She's still working through the last part of her condition, but I've got to say she's probably one of the cases that I've had that have had such a huge turnaround in 4 weeks essentially. She's gone from being so fatigued with a 10 out of 10 now to having fatigue at a 3 or 2 out of 10, being able to get on and get out there and live her life, which is what we want. We don't want to be totally working around, being bedridden and having chronic illness. We're not meant for that. That's not what our life is meant to be. So I hope that you've enjoyed Transformation Tuesday. Leave me any comments and I'll talk to you soon. Have a great week, everybody. Bye.